It's at this point in the season you start to look around and go, okay, 5 races in will be after this. It will be 5 races to go as we take our exit. This is a very important battle here in Season 3 of the eFormula series, because today it is Phillip Island, one of the fastest, one of the most ferocious tracks out there, and one which is very, very reliant in staying in range with drivers in and around you. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the conversation with ESPN, your esports broadcasting network, as we bring you the 5th round here of action from your eFormula series. I'm Jack Sperry, joined alongside by Frank Marchese here as we get ourselves ready for action, just in the stages of practice at this moment. Just about 12-ish minutes to go and deal with at this stage, but you would say it's been a season of ups and downs and all around for pretty much every driver out there so far. No guarantees have been given on this season so far, and the unpredictability has been the most predictable part so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an incredible season so far from top to bottom. And you go back to 2 weeks ago at Monza, we saw a great race between Javier Alvarez and Paul Ilbrink for the race win that got a little bit further away as the race went on. But there's been a lot of competitive racing this season. There's been a lot of back and forth action. It's been one hell of a season as we hit the halfway point here today.
Talking one hell of a season, back-to-back wins there for Paul Ilbrink has really skyrocketed him up the championship. Let's talk championship standings as things look. It is Pavel Vasiliev in control on 60 points, but the margins behind, this is looking like a 4-horse race for this championship at this moment in time. Dave Guild on 52 points, Paul Ilbrink on 51, and Javier Alvarez there on 43. So it shows you top 4 split by 17 points. Still anyone's game here between now and the end of the season, especially when we note that, subject to the next iRacing season coming out, is when we're going to be expecting to know those final 5 rounds of the championship.
And the new iRacing season should be coming out this week. I saw on iRacing, I think it was yesterday, the update was set for the 9th. So we should know very, very soon when this next season is going to come out. I would have to expect that we're going to be going to the Hockenheim Ring at some point, which was the new track that came out at the beginning of this season. So it's still unknown, but you can kind of fill in some of the blanks as to where these guys could be going as the season enters its second half.
Exactly. There will be some potential on the board as they all try and get their best times in practice. Vasiliev currently the top of the times right now, 1:15.731 out there at the moment. Worth also keeping an eye out on the team's standings. That is in the back pocket right now of Atomic Racing, 86 points at this moment in time, but it's a very close fought battle. You've got the Radicals Online Track Racer team on 77 and the Tulip Racing team on 69. So it's still very, very close, and there are no guarantees, at least at this moment in time, that that championship is being a runaway, as it potentially has been between 2 teams over the course of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been between Radicals and Positive Sim Racing over these last couple of years. And now you enter Atomic Racing, Tulip Racing starting to get into it after Danny Hoekstra missed a race, and then also finished very, very well at Monza last week. So now Tulip Racing is getting back into it. This is going to be a very, very good fight between at least the top 4 teams of this season, and also the bottom 4 teams, only separated by 7 or 8 points. So that's also very, very close down there in the mid-pack as well.
Privateer standings look very much like a case of fits and starts for all drivers out there. Only 15 points this season for IM Keeman, still gives him a 6-point lead in that championship. And when you consider that puts him tied for 8th overall in the standings, it really does give you a real look to see who is up there and who is scoring those points and who is not. So when you consider that 6th in the championship has 17 points and 12th in the championship's got 12, it's a very, very close fought mid-pack this season, and we've seen a whole host of names pick up good results.
Yeah, absolutely. And IM Keeman's one of those drivers that hasn't had too many good results over the course of the early half of this season. So he can really pick it up, and also helps that Christoph Boozy, who would be far and away the leader of this privateer standings, getting picked up by Atomic Racing, prior to the race at Monza, so that also really, really helped Keeman to possibly win a second privateer championship in a row.
And you have to say as well, Keeman wasn't going for that at the start of the season.
Yep.
He did initially start in the White Devils team with Jan Steltenpool, but they both split and went their separate ways, so now they're both fighting in the privateer standings. But Phillip Island, let's talk the track here. It's 4.44 kilometers. It's 12 turns of racing action, and it's probably the fastest average speed that drivers are going to get to this season. It's incredibly quick. There are no corners where I think you go down into first gear, apart from maybe MG. And all of the hairpins around this place are second or third gear and are progressive and parabolic style corners, which obviously mean here, Frank, that you're able to carry a lot of speed.
Yeah, we're riding along with Mark Bruning right now, and you can see just easy full throttle the first corner. This second corner here, though, very, very long, very deceptive. You have to be patient if you want to get a good run through this second corner. Turn 3 also more of a very easy corner to get through. Then it's a hard braking zone down into turn number 4. It is very tight. Watch you don't get too much up on those curbs, otherwise you'll do exactly what Mark did right there. Now you're getting into the more technical part of this racetrack once you hit turn 4. This tight interior, a winding bit here, but this is going uphill to one of the more famous parts of this track. Uphill, hard left. You can keep it full throttle here, but you go right downhill into a very, very hard right-hand turn with a tight exit. Come out into a sweeping left and then a long sweeping left. And then just like that, well, if you would have stayed on the racetrack, just like that, you're done with this lap.
Yeah, it's an incredible lap around this place, and it has produced some incredible races in 2 wheels and with 4 as well. Of course, who remembers that great MotoGP race around this place, Frank, where Ian One managed to headbutt a seagull and still finish 4th?
Yeah, one of the more legendary MotoGP races as well. A lot of great racing. Doesn't matter what you're on, 4 wheels or 2. It is a very, very fun place to drive. Very quick, not too many technical parts as we just saw on this racetrack, but the technical bits that are around this racetrack, you need to be on.
You absolutely do, and this is a track which has a lot of corners on it, which gives you that chance to go out there, be aggressive, and make the moves. If you can get it done through 1 and 2, you've got a chance to come back at 4. Maybe you might have a chance up Lukey Heights down into MG. That's another place you can get it done. I believe Christoph Boozy for Atomic has found himself a spin with Alexander Rogenbach, tried to get out of the way and decided, you know what, I'm not going to avoid that too much. I will just take my medicine and pull that one off into the pits and get myself another little go back out there again. But we need to talk strategy. Of course, there is one pit stop, as always, in this series, 1 hour and 5 minutes worth of racing. And this pit lane is unique for 2 reasons. One, it's very single track on the way in and a long single track as well, which means it's very easy to make those mistakes in. But secondly, you've got dual choice as you exit the lane. You can either take the very, very dangerous fast right out onto the pits, or you can take that long labouring left towards turn 1.
Yep, absolutely. And we're going to ride on board now with Paul Ilbrink, and you can see the split. Ilbrink deciding to take the right. Now, if you want to take the left, you're not going to come out until you hit right there, that little access road you saw there on the left. That's where you come out. That's another single lane, just like the pit entry. It's a little bit easier to get out into because you're not in the fast lane. You are offline. But when it comes down to a quick race, a close race, pardon me, that could be the difference between whether or not you gain or lose a position coming out of the pit stops.
Worth keeping an eye on Ilbrink's times. He's 1.2 seconds down at the moment on Pavel Vasiliev up top, but we know that Paul Ilbrink does like to quote-unquote put the bag of sand in the car when it comes to practice, maybe puts race fuel in the car. But you'd say for Paul Ilbrink right now, 2 wins on the bounce, right back in it in the championship picture. This is exactly what he's looking for, momentum, and it's on his side right now here at Phillip Island.
And this is exactly what we're used to out of Paul Ilbrink as well. We saw so consistent in the midway portion of last season, and really it started to unravel when we went to the street circuit at Long Beach. That's when it started to really fall apart for Ilbrink. looked as though it was going to continue at the beginning of this season, but he's righted the ship. He's won the last 2 races, and you're right, he's about a second off of Pavel Vasiliev. But honestly, when we first joined this session about 20 minutes ago, he would have been up in the top 5. So he, with the current time that he has posted as he runs wide, and I believe that was turn 2, this is a big run of momentum that Ilbrink has carried through these last couple of weeks, and this is the kind of track where he can really continue it.
He certainly can. Of course, second in the championship right now will probably be the biggest surprise of anyone this season. Dave Guild, we've seen him have that good pace and showcase that he can go up there and he can challenge up there at the very top. But he's now found a way to consistently get there this season. That's why he's only 8 points back right now and showcasing that he is putting Tulip Racing on the map. They can fight for this championship.
And he's not on track at the moment, but he has had a very good run this season. He's podiumed, I think, in the last 3 races. He's on that streak all the way from VIR, so he has had a very good start to this season. As we see, that was Alex Rogenbuck taking the long way out of pit road, and I believe that was also the 34 of Mark Ponick that was taking the long way out of pit road. So a little bit of a view of what we were talking about before. But you're right, Guild has put it all together this season, finished third, a solid third at Monza 2 weeks ago. So this is going to be a fun season to see if he can hold on to it this year.
Well, his last 3 finishes have been third, second, and third, which tells you all you need to know about how good that he's been so far this season, Dave Guild, and getting exactly what he wants out of it. But there are drivers in the middle of the pack who will be looking for good results. Looking out there in practice at the moment, Nathan Brumby and Mark Ponick are the 2 that are really catching my eye at the moment. They are 4th and 5th at this moment on 16.2s and 16.3s. The fact that this is open qualifying as well, Frank, that we're going into in just under a minute's time, that's going to be really telling, because like Baku, for example, that we saw earlier on today with Formula 1, it's a case of you need to be within a range, within a tow, to really get a benefit around this track.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many fast parts of this racetrack, and really coming out of that very tight downhill right, it's pretty much a drafting racetrack all the way through. So you can certainly take it, you can take that drafting momentum really from that last corner all the way into turn 2, as there's Ponick running the McLaren scheme that they ran last week at Monaco, was it not?
Exactly. So it's very close to, if not is, and that would be very much ideal. And I believe we do see then on the liveries there all that we do at this moment in time. Checker flag though does come out, and yes, you're absolutely right. Mark Ponick is running a McLaren style Golf livery. There is no doubts about it, but we will be moving over to qualifying, so we'll see that in a lot more better glory as we go through. 15 minutes then to get qualifying sorted out, and it's worth noting here today that the race will be 1 hour and 5 minutes on time and will not be on laps, and that's going to be very important because there was an issue when setting up the server as they tried to go through, which meant that they couldn't quite get the lap sorted. The session was up a little bit later than they expected it to as well. So ultimately, it will be on time for the race, which will mean that it's going to be slightly longer and they're going to have to fuel a little bit more for those laps that are available.
It was supposed to be a 48-lap race, which would have taken around, what I would say, maybe 55 minutes to an hour to begin with. So we're only getting about 3 or 4 laps more racing. But you're right, that does make a big difference as to whether or not you fuel the car and how you fuel the car later on, and maybe even if you take 1 or 2 pit stops.
And the 1 pit stop or the 2 pit stops is going to be something interesting to keep in mind. I do expect most drivers to stay with that 1 stop. They can go very long with the strategies here today, but times are going to be very important. Let's get a look on the 91 machine, a driver who's been very good in qualifying this season, Danny Herkstra, as just in front. Off goes the atomic car of Christoph Boozy for a little bit of a moment, but Herkstra making his charge then out to the final corner and on to this front stretch, the Gardner Straight, as they make that charge up and over here on the coast of Victoria Cows Victoria it is, and through turn 1 here, the do and bend, and now into 2 here, this long southern loop, 180 degrees. In America, they call that a carousel as they go on through, but on the power, on the exit, you need to be right up and aggressive immediately. Casey Stoner corner, legendary bike rider through turn 3, and immediately on the brakes into Honda. Turn number 4, of course, this is the former Repsol Honda development circuit. Times coming in on the board are not representative at this stage, as now through the kink of 5 into Siberia of turn 6. It's called Siberia because if you go off at that point, you might as well be there as you now make this charge through the hay shed then of turn 8 out on track, and the long lukey heights of turn 9 up and over the hill. Nice and neat from Danny Herkstra as he's got to pick his marker early down the hill. Gravity against you at MG, and then 2 final corners, 11 and 12. Turning as you go through, very reliant this corner on keeping patient is 11, and then 12 is that sweeping bend. They're going already 240 kilometers an hour, 255, 250 on the exit. That is a breeze by lap here at Phillip Island, and that only took 1:16.2.
Yep, and that will be the number 1 time right now as we get through into qualifying. Jeff Browning, Nathan Brumby, Dave Guild, we saw him have a lockup going through MG. That is a very, very tight corner, and you saw the perfect camera angle there for Danny Hoekstra. You have to be straight as an arrow going down that hill. Otherwise, the back end will become the front end very, very quickly.
It absolutely will, and we have seen that before. Ilbrink looked good on his times, and so good, in fact, that he went top. 1:16.009. Javier Alvarez was just behind him by about 700ths of a second. So no matter how much things go, it's looking pretty nice. And Danny Herkstra on an even better lap right now as he makes his way up through Lukey Heights. He was purple in the first 2 sectors.
He was purple in the first sector. Make that Pavel Vasiliev, who is now purple in the first sector. Christoph Boozy, his atomic teammate, running right behind him. The fastest overall now in the second sector. Boozy, the only driver to go 22 seconds in the second sector right now. Ilbrink got close, missed it by 100th, but Boozy and Vasiliev, I was watching those 2 practice earlier today. They are incredibly quick. Atomic is going to be tough to beat here today.
You absolutely have to believe that. Atomic, of course, strengthening their lineup for the team's championship, knowing that Ilbrink's going to have a lot of the time on his own. Boozy getting grass out of 11. He was pushing a little bit too hard there. Grabs a bit of curb, trying to get the toe from Alvarez coming over towards the line. And it's going to be Vasiliev up to second on a 15.9. Ilbrink moved to a 15.7 and a 16 flat from Boozy. It's good enough then for third position at the moment. Mark Ponick going up to P5 with a 16.1. But what you can definitely say is that Atomic had the big advantage in the team's championship. It's 2 versus 1.
Yep, absolutely. As Vasiliev, we saw it on our camera there. Alvarez had a little bit of a mix-up coming through the last 2 corners, and Vasiliev may have had to let off to get around Alvarez, who was very, very close to wiping that left front out. So Vasiliev, we know he can certainly go faster, might have been caught up a little bit by that as Ilbrink right at the top with a 1:15.787. This is a lightning quick racetrack, especially in these cars.
I'll tell you what, he didn't lift.
Oh,
he's
around.
Lift, and there goes Ilbrink off the road at MG, and a big spin in a big way, and that's what can happen there at Phillip Island. It's a very tough track. It's not necessarily the wind today. There's no wind to talk about, but it's that switch over as you go down the hill. You transfer from putting the power up and trying to push up a hill to down, and the back can very easily just spin and swing around on you just in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, Vasiliev, fastest of all again in the first sector, could not reset his personal bests in the second and third. Ilbrink, though, is the one with the advantage, the only one remotely anywhere near Ilbrink in the third sector is actually Christoph Boozy. Ilbrink put down a 28.12 in the third sector. Actually, Ponick is the next closest at a 28.33. So Ilbrink really flying through the last sector of this circuit.
And it's important to know how drivers set up. This is normally what you'd call a low downforce track, but if you flick over to a medium downforce and try and get things working, you'll be really good in that final sector. Those two flowing left-hand bends to end the lap. That is the place where medium downforce packages really do pay off.
Yeah, we're watching Esteban Guadarrama, and it's not necessarily the last corner. It's the corner coming out. It's the next corner. It's the left coming out of MG that you really need the downforce, because the car is still trying to settle itself out. You're trying to push on the throttle as hard as you can. That left is really, really tough to gauge how fast you can really go through that corner. So if you do put a little bit more rear downforce on it, you can pin the throttle a little bit sooner than everyone else who's setting up more for a fast circuit.
Javier Alvarez now jumping up to second, a 15.949, 5 thousandths clear, as Dave Guild comes across the line to go fourth on a 16 flat. So it's getting pretty crowded. Ian Keeman now moves up to sixth place with a 16 flat of his own, the privateer leader. So we are seeing all of these different times coming in together on the board, and it is really now getting close. It's 3/10 splitting the top six. It's half a second splitting the top eight.
Yeah, absolutely. Ilbrink once again setting fastest first sector time. Second sector time still belongs to Christoph Boozy, but other than that, Ilbrink fastest of all in the first and third sector. Could not get his personal best beaten in the second sector, so he's going to put up a time relatively close to what he's already posted.
Well, he'll make that charge towards the line. 15.787 his best. We're already halfway through, and that's a 15.8 there by Ilbrink, which means that he won't be able to improve just yet.
Relatively close.
Time to go at this stage, but you know, everyone is just going to be calm and trying to find exactly what times they need. Alvarez then drops it over the line. Doesn't want to give anything away at this moment, but you're now starting to wonder here, when you get yourself out on track, can you get yourself in the train? And maybe you need your teammates to go and help you out a bit.
Yep, Guild up to P2, personal best, sectors 1 and 3. Fastest of all, sector 2, I.M. Keeman sets the fastest lap overall, eclipsing Paul Ilbrink by 8 1/1000ths of a second with a 1:15.709.
It's an all-Dutch front row as things look. That tells you a lot about where we are, how we're fighting, and how things are going to be going from this point onwards. I would say that I.M. Keeman has pulled out a fantastic lap, but as we know, there's always a little bit in the back of the pocket from Paul Ilbrink. You never know when he goes out there and puts the best available time on the board. Looking at where we are, it's going to be tougher as qualifying goes on because, of course, it's 8:44 a.m. in conditions.
Yep, Guild not all that, not faster than his previous best in the first and second sector. Vasiliev sets a personal best in the first sector and in the third as he crosses the line, moves himself up into the third position. Now, remind me, weren't Vasiliev and Boozy down in the 1:15.5s during the practice session? They still haven't found that pace yet, if they were.
1:15.7 in practice from Pavel Vasiliev, and you look to Christoph Boozy, he did a 16 flat, so they're both
so
pretty
they are
even.
Right around, yeah.
They are pretty even at this stage, as in the wall has gone one driver, didn't quite catch who that was. Ultimately, in the end, I believe that was I.M. Keeman getting it wrong up over Lukey Heights. So drivers really finding it difficult here. Of course, this is a track which is very unforgiving if you get it slightly wrong. All grass on the outside, but it's very akin to most Australian tracks where you don't have oodles and oodles of runoff, and nice runoff either.
Yeah, no, back end swapped right around on I.M. Keeman. You were 100% right there, and he took a hard hit into those tire walls. As we're looking at Pavel Vasiliev right now, Vasiliev, I believe he's about to go. Yep, this is into Honda at turn 4. Mark Ponick, personal best, second sector. Jan Steltenpool, also personal best in the second sector. Steltenpool trying to get up into that top 10. Only one driver yet to post a time, and that's Leonardo Fabian.
Yeah, Leonardo Fabian's trying his best. Alexander Rogenbach, by the way, is beached, or was beached, as he was spinning out of Siberia, and he finally found himself right by the marshal's post and up on the cliff. So he had himself his issues out there at the moment. But Vasiliev, of course, is the championship leader and would love to get himself right up there as qualifying goes. Not the end of the world around this track. You can make overtakes, and it's the easier of tracks to go and make overtakes at. It's across the line. It's a 19.6 outlap then from Vasiliev to get things going. So we're seeing these times start to creep up in on the board, but there is a big disparity between those in the top 10 and those who aren't. The difference, 7/10 between 10th and 11th.
Yep, and that's Nathan Brumby holding down that 10th position in the number 14 as we see him coming down the hill, that tight corner, and he's taking it to where he's staying all the way over to the right to try to get the fastest and most secure run through that penultimate corner that he possibly can. That's certainly one way to take it. You want to carry a little bit more speed. You would go out to the left, but Brumby right now puts down a 1:16.4, so he jumped up quite a bit as far as his best lap time, but still staying in that 10th position.
And they are running out of time to get it all sorted. 16 drivers here today. 15 have set a time. Leonardo Fabian, the only driver who has decided not to go out there and set any laps, will choose to elect to go from the back, it seems, here in qualifying. But at least for the time being, it is IM Keeman, Paul Ilbrink. Vasiliev has improved on that lap, but not enough to gain a place. 15.801. He is now under a tenth of a second away from getting himself to where he needs to be. And now you start to wonder, with Guild in fourth, the top four are split by a tenth and 7 thousandths.
Yeah, this is very, very tight between the top group. Vasiliev fastest of all in the second sector. Javier Alvarez jumps up into the second position. Personal best in the second and third sectors for Alvarez. So he has found the time that he needs, and now it's the top five separated by just that 10th and a half.
And just a 10th and a half is not much. Mark Ponick going for a spin right in front of Guild and Hoekstra. So that would have been a little bit awkward trying to pilot away on through. Just about got out of the way before they got there. So we'll see if that's affected anything over the lap. He apologises for it. It wasn't out lap there for Guild, and Hoekstra pulls it off to the side of the road. He will not improve on his lap times. So now it comes down to the final minute, and who has got anything left in the back pocket?
Jeff Browning, personal best, first and third sectors, puts down his best lap of qualifying at a 16.360, still holding in the 9th position. Keeman just crossing the line now. I believe the next one to cross the line is going to be Alvarez, and he's got a little bit of tow, I believe, from one of the hammer down cars in front of him.
Yeah, that's Guadarrama. So here's the charge to the line. 15 seconds remaining on the clock. He's got one more after this, and he couldn't improve on that one, and he's backed off of it, so he will not go any better. Boozy to the line, 16.1, not good enough there. Has another lap. Ilbrink will make a drive to the line then, and the checkered flag comes out here at Phillip Island. Ilbrink will be first to see if he can improve. Has he got it? No, he was too slow.
I think that was an out lap for him.
Then as he tries to get his final lap together on the board. Ponick as well, diving for the pit. So now it's to Vasiliev. Is the next little look that we'll have to keep an eye out on as he struggles through MG and will pull it off the road. And that will almost balk Keeman's run as he goes through. He was green in the first sector, which is really good for IM Keeman, but has he lost all of it going through the final couple sectors there with where Vasiliev was parked on the inside of turn 11, and to the line it goes. It's a 15.9 only, so not good enough to see improvement. Steltenpool trying to improve on 11th place. We'll see what time this is over the line. That is a 16.8, so did improve on time. De La Fuente, 17.9, did not improve. Guadarrama into the pits, and now it's down to Christoph Boozy and his final lap around this place. He's got to find 2/10 to move past Dave Guild. He's currently on the third row of the grid, and as he makes that drive to the line, he will manage himself a 16.2. It was not enough to get it done at the end. So confirmation of qualifying then as they get it all done. It is IM Keeman who puts the car on pole position, the leading privateer up there at the top of 15.709, with Javier Alvarez there in second position for positive. Third will go to Paul Ilbrink, who's on a streak of 2 race wins in a row, but we'll have the championship leader alongside him, Pavel Vasiliev, in 4th place. Dave Guild will start 5th as the leading Phillip car, with Christoph Boozy there, the second Atomic in 6th. Mark Ponick and Danny Herkstra, 7th and 8th. I mean, the top 8 are split by half a second, with Nathan Brumby in 9th and 10th. Jeff Browning in 9th and Nathan Brumby there in 10th position. Jan Steltenpool is 11th, with Marcellus Bruning in 12th. Then it's Esteban Guadarrama with Javier De La Fuente in 14th. Alexander Rogenbach, P15, and Leonardo Fabian, the last driver, in 16th place.
It's certainly going to be an entertaining race and a very, very good one at that. With Keeman on the pole, the last time he sat on the pole, that was at Long Beach. And what did Keeman do when at Long Beach last season?
I believe he ran away from the field and won by over half a minute, and that will be a case of Ian Keeman trying to replicate that here today at Phillip Island. I doubt it will be half a minute. These drivers are far too close to that, unless there is a huge accident that piles up everyone. And of course, we don't want to see that, but 16 drivers looking to all put themselves nicely on the grid and make sure that they have got everything that they need and a bit more. They have those 2 minutes available to them in order to make that happen, but you've got to keep your eyes peeled. This is one which I'm sure everyone wants to put in the back pocket and say that that is going to be theirs. And of course, you can like, share, and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Esports Broadcasting Network for more amazing action, such as the eFormula series, but all sorts of things happening at all sorts of times a day here with us. But the focus is very much there. Drivers looking to get themselves ready. Just waiting on 2 drivers at this moment. One is Marcellus Bruning, and the other is Mark Ponick. Ponick then up onto the grid, as is Bruning. So the lights procedure will start an hour and 5 minutes here at Phillip Island. It will start right around now. The green and the go, and it's a pretty even start. Those close on this grid, they'll fall pretty nicely into line. Boozy's covering Ponick then about 3 rows back as they go in towards 1. Ilbrink with an angle to the inside then. We'll look to challenge here on Keeman as well. With 3 wide into 2, it's Ilbrink who backs out of it, but Alvarez is harrying and harassing every stage of the way. They're going to be side by side off the exit, and now the run to Casey Stoner is going to be the big important one here, as still Keeman fights it, but he will lose out potentially here as Alvarez got the run, and it's all nicely covered.
Yeah, but Alvarez, it's a big spin. That's, I believe that was Mark Bruning. A big pile up in the back. Steltenpool around. Bruning. De La Fuente having issues. Ponick, so a big stumble here at the back of this field. But at the front, a beautiful start from Alvarez. Ilbrink had to control himself going into turn 2. Did a good job of letting those 2 race. And now he can set his sights on the 2 drivers ahead of him.
Amazingly, for 5 cars off the road, only one of it was involved by contact. Guadarrama had his own spin. Bruning went off the road on his own. It was a case of Jeff Browning running into Mark Ponick. That's why they both went off. And Brumby also went off on his own as well. And there's more dramas off the road as Brumby is off again, as is Browning, as is Bruning. They all got off the road then as they are at the back. It is 7 cars clear at the front, and they're fighting for the lead. Here comes Ian Keeman to the outside and the Mock Benetton. Yep,
Keeman doing it, trying to get around again. The problem was he was on the outside going through Stoner that put him out of the racing lead. Now he's trying to get back up, and Alvarez doing a great job of protecting that inside going into Honda, as we'll now jump overhead and take a look at what happened on the start going into Honda. You can see right up there at the front, and it's going to happen in the midfield here as Bruning is just locked up the rears.
Yeah, Bruning had his moment. Browning also locked up the rears on cold tyres as he went through. That's why Mark Ponick got the hit. And then a lot of drivers just deciding, you know what, we're just going to stay out of the way of everything and go through. Maybe the only thing you could say is that Brumby got a hit from behind as he went on through into the corner. So those 5 drivers all ran into troubles. They all got back on again, and they had even more of them. Now, if you can go back live, Paul Ilbrink is side by side with I.M. Keeman in the fight for 2nd and 3rd. But Keeman is better in a straight line right now than Paul Ilbrink is.
Yeah, and Keeman has the inside going into turn one, and that's going to be big here. These are very wide, fast, sweeping corners. However, they do require the inside lane if you want to make the pass. We saw it happen on turn one, and we saw it there as well. And with the straight line speed that Keeman has shown, we've pretty much confirmed what you had assumed at during the qualifying session. Ilbrink has a little bit more rear end downforce on that number 16 Radicals machine. Is in the background. We were able to catch a glimpse. Guild has gotten around Vasiliev in the 98.
Certainly has, and it's made a double-decker atomic sandwich with tulip bread. If ever you would have any sort of a race right now, because you can see it is tulip 4th, atomic 5th and 6th, and tulip in 7th with Danny Herkstra. What's key is that this entire pack has 10 seconds over the first couple of laps here in comparison to Leonardo Fabian in 8th place, and all of the dramas we saw a little bit further back behind. There is a battle for position as Steltenpool gets by Alexander Rogenbach for place, and following through as well is Guadarrama, who both gain a place.
Yep, and Rogenbach, we've seen him gain those places because I believe he decided to pit start here. Oh, actually, no, he was really slow to get away. Pardon me. Well, he was really slow to get away, allowed that group to get out in front of him, and that's what helped him get around that big melee at Honda on lap 1.
Alvarez now 1.2 seconds clear, and Ilbrink again is searching for that move up into turn number 4. Very difficult braking zone here. You've got to make sure that you have got all corners covered through 4. You can sneak away through if you're not careful, but nicely line astern then the group goes, and the focus for I.M. Keeman has to be there, and Rogenbach is in the tyres and heavily in the tyres at turn 2. The southern loop just takes it off the road, and it's all downhill from there.
Yep, and Rogenbach, and that's what happens around here. Nathan Brumby also had a big off as well. We'll take a look and see what happened with Brumby. He's battling, he just too wide going up the hill, has a big off, and then just decides to run it off into the tires down at the bottom end of the track, going back to what happened with Rogenbach. And yeah, I believe that was turn 2. He just went straight on.
Nathan Brumby got very, very personal there with De La Fuente over the radio. He says, how on earth can you think about going too wide at Lukey Heights? I'm sorry there, Nathan. That's racing. He didn't make any contact with you as he went through. You went off the road and ran out of downforce in the end, and Javier De La Fuente ultimately can continue that race. So red mist descending for Nathan Brumby, but I have to say that's entirely of his own doing. Yeah,
and that's unfortunate. Very, very close. And on the outside, you have to kind of be aware that you're going to have to give that position up because you know where you're going to be. It's that corner, it tightens up. It tightens up at the back end before going down into MG. So you're going to have to give that position up if you want to make it through. And unfortunately, he didn't feel as though he needed to, and that put him where he is right now, which is in pit lane.
Well, we've also seen on screen that I.M. Keeman lost the place into turn 1 in the battle there with Paul Ilbrink, and then Dave Gill took advantage at turn 4 and has put I.M. Keeman off of the podium as things stand. Vasiliev and Boozy now trying to get themselves into the mix as they go through, but all of this is allowing Javier Alvarez the chance to break away and put his stamp of approval on things. 1.5 seconds he has at the front of this one, but if anyone's going to chase down, it's the driver who's got a championship in this season, or in this series, the inaugural championship, and on top of that as well, you'd say, Frank, also a driver who is pretty much doing a wonderful job, has 2 race wins in a row.
Yep, absolutely, and he just put down the fastest lap of the race now that he's been sprung free out from behind I.M. Keeman. Paul Ilbrink setting a 1:16.88 fastest lap of the race, and Dave Guild on that podium streak right behind him as well. Not showing any fear of racing up front here with these guys. Meanwhile, Keeman now really falling into the clutches of Vasiliev.
Yeah, and Pavel Vasiliev's got to motor here. His 2 main rivals in the championship, or in fact all of his rivals in the championship, are up ahead. Alvarez in the lead, Ilbrink in second, and Guild in third. At least the one saving grace right now for Pavel Vasiliev, it's that it's pretty much reverse order, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st in the championship. are fifth, third, second, and first right now.
Yeah, so he's not losing too much, is Vasiliev. He lost quite a bit at Monza, though. He's down to an 8-point lead at the moment, trying to mitigate that damage right now. But he's just not had the pace that he had in the first race at Road America. Certainly not the pace that he had in VIR. These last couple of races between Interlagos and Monza, it's been quite a difference from the first two.
It certainly has, and the difference as well is that you can't afford to make mistakes in this series. This is a series that really does punish you for mistakes, and it's by that incident system that we have seen. But crucially in this race, because we've been keeping an eye out and they've been having a few server issues to get this all done, there is technically no limit here to the incidents they can accrue in this race. So they've been given the leash, they've been taking it off, but I'm sure these drives will still be running in and around a very, very nice and niche margin.
Yep, I would have to
around.
assume. Yep, Ilbrink around. That's coming out at the bottom of MG, and he's put that in the wall. That's putting the too much power too quick, and he's high-centered himself.
He's beached himself in the grass. He'll have to take a tow. And just like that, Paul Ilbrink, and it's such an unfortunate place to have it happen, he's going to have to take a tow, and he is going to have to take very minimal points out of this one. He's trying so desperately to get it through.
Trying to reverse it now.
All four contact patches are up in the air.
He's trying to reverse it now. He's got the left front on the ground. However, it's the rears that are the drive wheels, and you can see it's locked in a specific... now he's finally towed it. But it was locked in such a way where the left rear was the only one that was spinning there. The right rear was the only one that was spinning there. And that has really taken the pressure off of Alvarez, because we showed the graphic the lap before. Ilbrink was really taking time out of Alvarez's lead.
And we've seen it time and again. Paul Ilbrink pushing to 101%. And the car just going away. It seems every time I've turned up this season, he's had a little moment here or there, with one exception. I should go away for a little bit of these more races to see Paul Ilbrink get himself close in the championship again.
Yeah, we just saw the replay again of what happened with Ilbrink, and he was reversing, and I think if he wouldn't have stopped where he did to try to get it going back forward again, he would have been fine. Now, the reason why he stopped where he did, he was trying not to back it right back up onto the circuit, but trying to be the gentleman driver is what was his demise.
Certainly has. He's now fallen a lap down. He's had to wait for the tow truck to come along and give him a tow back to the pits, where he will be able to get back out and race again out there on circuit. Some great battles out there in the front. Dave Gilton now up into second. It's Keeman third, Vasiliev fourth, Boozy fifth, and Herkstra sixth. Great battle going on, or there was for a moment. Still is, sorry, right now. Looks like Leonardo Fabian has dropped a long way back then in terms of his race, and he's looking behind him at Jan Steltenpool. So Steltenpool right now is going to be looking to try and get through Leonardo Fabian in the battle for 8th and 9th. Fabian dropping 10 seconds on that last lap.
Yep, and Ilbrink back on the racetrack, as I believe Fabian has had that big issue that you were talking about there. We'll see what happened to Fabian as he was racing with one of his, was racing with Esteban Guadarrama, and just locked it up and spun the back end around at Honda. That was his big problem there. Rogenbuck has also had another off. Same thing at Honda, locking up, taking Honda too hard. And then Leonardo Fabian has gone off again at Honda.
Yep, so Leonardo Fabian is not having much luck at all here at the Honda corner. This time he just goes too deep, trying to overcompensate, locking up the front, trying to grab it. He's kept it in a straight line. That's the important part, but ultimately he does lose the place to Jan Steltenpool, and that's why he's a little bit further back. But this race is still incredibly important for the front six at the moment, who are split by 3.4 seconds. We are just about coming up towards a quarter of the way through this race, Frank, and this is something that you keep an eye out on and say, this is a tactical race, because those drivers who are 4th, 5th, 6th positions right now, they're saving that fuel. They don't have to go out there. They don't have to be aggressive. They don't have to make moves in these early stages. They'll try and mitigate all of that by having a bit of an advantage in the pits.
Yeah, absolutely. And these guys right now are in a situation to where they're trying to do all of that. Meanwhile, they're also trying to stay as honest as they can because everyone up at the front is so close. As you mentioned, there's only 3 seconds between first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So you have to stay close. And you can see with the lap times, there's only about a tenth in it between Alvarez and Danny Hoekstra, first and sixth. So these guys all have very, very similar pace, which is great. We're getting some entertaining racing, and it's fun for these guys as well. But, man, they're having to work hard to not make a mistake.
Alvarez did a 17.2. Everyone except Boozy did a 17.3. Boozy did a 17.4. That tells you just how close it is and how everyone is feeding off of everyone else. And they're effectively saying to Dave Guild, you are the workhorse. Go out there and chase number 98, and we'll try and get that work done later on. And the crucial thing is that Dave Guild doesn't get any advantage with Alvarez a second and a half down the road. He still has to work at full bore to try and chase him down, which means one very important thing, he's using a lot of fuel.
Yeah, but Alvarez is also doing exactly what he needs to do, and that is slowly but surely extending out that lead, trying to minimize the effect that the draft that he's giving to Dave Guild is having. So if he can get out there and Guild make a little tiny mistake and pull himself, he's a 1.6 second gap right now. Guild and Alvarez almost ran identical lap times there, a 17.367 to a 3.68. So Guild and Alvarez running identical lap times, or virtually identical lap times, not really pulling. Is Alvarez, I believe Hoekstra just had a massive off in turn 2, and he has.
Oh, it's a huge one right on the back. Again, stepping out, not once, not twice, and he tries to save it. But then when you're in the gravel and you're going downhill off of that section towards those tyres, there's not much that you can do. That car was trying to break away free towards the Bay of Victoria.
Yeah, that's one where you almost want to... Wrong button there. That's one where you almost want to just lock it down and just try to settle that back end out. Because especially, well, one, with the speed and momentum that Hoekstra had, and two, with the physics with the grass here on iRacing, you are not going to stop anytime soon until you hit a solid object.
I'll tell you who else is out of the race now. It's Paul Ilbrink. He's put it in the wall a second time. And just like that, the race is over for him. He's decided to pull it off the road and say that is day done. It's worth noting here in this series right now with the way that the server's gone as well. They don't have any limits to their fast repairs. So they've got what is normally no fast repair race over. They've got infinite fast repairs.
Yeah, and that's interesting. It certainly is, as Hoekstra now will bring it into pit road to repair that front wing. As you see that front wing hiked up there on the front, so that's damaged him. And also going back to Paul Ilbrink, we saw the replay of what happened to him trying to get around the outside of Esteban Guadarrama and just sent it in turn 2, did almost the exact same thing as Danny Hoekstra trying to get around Guadarrama on the outside.
Yeah, crucially no contact there either as they went through the corner, so always going to be a big amount of hurt going through there, which now leaves 5 cars fighting for the race win. Christoph Boozy, though, has really dropped back over the course of this lap, and I'm trying to catch where it's gone wrong for him. And one of the keys I'm looking at is on the exit of Honda, the back end, stepping out as he goes through. He catches it and crucially keeps himself in the race. At what cost, though? Well, you look at the gap, he was 3.2 back, he's now 5.3, so he's lost 2 seconds with that one moment. Yep,
and Boozy really far off the back of this group now as he's trying to recover from that mistake. But still, I would much rather be a couple of seconds off of where I was than to be where Ilbrink and Hoekstra are, which are down and out of this race, essentially.
Just interesting, we just had a comment from Paul Ilbrink there in the chat saying, well, it was already pointless in P13, at least not wasting more time. So for Paul Ilbrink, he was seeing that he wasn't going to score many points, and why would you race another 40 minutes out there in 13th, a lap down, not scoring anything?
We're down now to 40 minutes. We're working minute number 17 here of this race, about to tick over into minute 18 in the next 15 seconds. It is certainly a tight race up here at the front still. Gild, Keeman, and Vasiliev have to be right on it.
They absolutely do. Another battle going on. Leonardo Fabian, who, remember, started at the back of the field today, is up 8 places. Well, make that 7 as through goes Mark Ponick.
Yep, Ponick on that inside still hasn't quite cleared him as they head into, I believe that's turn number 3, and through Stoner into Honda. And boy, really close racing going through here. And now Ponick will be able to get the move done.
Good fighting there from Leonardo Fabian, trying to give himself everything he possibly could and a bit more out there, but ultimately unable to really make anything happen. It's 6 seconds back to Marcellus Bruning. The car behind them is Jeff Browning, who is 1 lap down at this moment in now inherited 13th position from Paul Ilbrink. But at least for the moment, now it gets interesting. Alvarez has traffic in front of him in the form of Javier De La Fuente at this moment in time. So Alvarez with work to do here on the 15th lap of this race.
Yep, absolutely. And it's the gap is somewhat maintaining. We'll throw the graphic up here. The sector times, Gild a little bit quicker through the second sector here as they come through the third. Overall lap times from Alvarez to Gild. Gild has actually been quicker these last couple laps, and he's going to be quicker again, as that's, I believe that's the 17 of Javier De La Fuente, who's in front of the 7 right now, giving a little bit of a tow. We'll see what it was. And yet less than a tenth, but Gild now starting to really reel that number 7 of Alvarez in.
Yeah, he's certainly hitting a level that he can be very, very happy with at this moment in time. De La Fuente moves to the inside of the circuit, and thank you very much, Javier Alvarez makes a way through. Now what's going to be interesting is how these next 3 make their charge through, because they've just extended those gaps a little bit. There's a few car widths in between, and look at that. Dive down the inside. Keeman gets a little bit out of shape there through at Honda corner, and then on the exit, thank you very much, Vasiliev goes through. I have to say, traffic here in this series is probably one of the best behaved I've seen all around sim racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were kind of overhead there on the that move by Keeman. I think he was trying to dive in on Dave Gild and just realized he was a little bit too far back and had to straight line it. Very lucky for him that he didn't run into De La Fuente, because he was going in, and he was going in hot, as Esteban Guadarrama has had, I believe, a little bit of a connection blink there. Good run for the Spaniard Guadarrama, running up in the 6th position.
Yep, he's done very, very well out there at the moment. So he's doing all that he needs to at this stage. Roggenbach's gone off the road again. This time it's down at turn 2 once more. He's just brushed with the tyres, and I think that his race is going to be almost all but done pretty soon at this moment. But at least for the time being, 2nd, 3rd and 4th continue their chase, and that gap at 1.3 seconds is awkward for Javier Alvarez. He's being forced to push, because if he doesn't, he'll get caught.
It's 1 second now, as a 1.1 seconds as Gild. We're looking at the back. We're looking off the back of Gild. Now we'll flip it around and look to the front of Gild. This is great racing. This is absolutely what you want to see. And it's not just with the leader in 2nd place. It's the entire top 4 going in, as once again, you'll see what we're talking about here going up this right-hander. It tightens up coming down and out of that corner, going down into MG. And we're seeing it more and more, and you're going to see it more and more as this session winds down and we'll get more and more wear on these tires. A lot of lockups happening in MG right now.
And Vasiliev has got a really good run here. He's going to try and attack IM Keeman for position. Keeman has got himself, though, in the draft, and thank you very much. That top end, that higher gear, it seems he's going almost 270 kilometers an hour in towards turn number 1, and that gap now becomes 2 battles of 2, more rather than a fight for 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and Vasiliev right now not letting Keeman go at all. Alvarez now for the first time really since the opening laps of this race, as here comes Vasiliev down into turn number 3 and 4, Vasiliev will make the pass stick this time, and Keeman has gone from pole to fourth without even leading a lap in this race.
Yeah, so Dave Guild has a little bit of a laugh. Alexander Rogenbach got well out of the way to apparently a whole new level. He was so far wide through Stoner Corner, he was doing donuts in the gravel as he was going on through. So Rogenbach is really not having a good time here at Phillip Island. He'll make it to the end, I'm sure. He's someone who definitely doesn't have never give up, and there's just been a change of position as we've just caught an eye on those donuts in the gravel. Leonardo Fabian's dropped the place to Marcellus Bruning.
Yep, and Keeman is coming right back on Pavel Vasiliev, and this is the part of the racetrack where that 57 of Keeman has been a lot stronger than everybody else, and he is going to make the move stick going into turn one. So only about a half a lap Keeman spent behind Vasiliev. That means Vasiliev needs to put Keeman out in a place where he is really going to lose a lot of time by trying to stick with the battle so he can get away and not fall victim to that draft and that top speed that I Am Keeman currently has.
Yeah, Keeman is just built in a form to battle right now, and it really does show with the way he's going out there and trying to conduct his racing. But there are still no guarantees that this will be the result that he needs to get. But look at how much time they've lost here, Frank, by their battling. It's 1.7 seconds and now up to 2.2. So you can really see how much the time has really dissipated over the course of this lap by how much they're having to battle each other.
Yep, and continuously growing as well. It's now up at, now it's come down to 2 seconds completely. Well, total now as Alvarez and Guild separated by a little bit more than a half a second. So these guys really, really flying, and you're right. Battling doesn't just slow you down, it slows everybody else around you down. And that's also allowed Christoph Boozy to close the gap in on those two. He was in the 4 or 5 second range behind the top 2, 3, 4. He is now 3 seconds away from the back end of his teammate Vasiliev.
So work to be done then. And if you can get anyone else in the party with you, that's always a big help as you go and battle top two with more traffic in front. They'll have to deal with Steltenpool and Leonardo Fabian and Marcellus Bruning and Jeff Browning in the next few laps, as they are all pretty close together within about a 6 second net at this moment. So Alvarez has the big difficulty. He's got to get past all the traffic first and foremost, and he's got to do so in a way that doesn't allow Dave Guild to close on down that gap and really put the pressure on. Worth noting as well, we are heading towards 25 minutes through this race. We are 25 minutes through this race, nearly 26. So soon we'll have drivers just starting to think about the earliest pit stop window availability from about halfway on forward.
Yep, absolutely. And we're at that point now. We're just completed lap 19. We're working on we've just completed lap 20, working on 21 right now. So we're almost halfway through this initial race distance as we look off the back of Javier Alvarez. Keeman and Vasiliev. Oh, yep, Guild did have a big wiggle there going through turn two, and that is the breathing room. That was every bit of the breathing room that Alvarez needed.
The back end stepped out going through turn two. He had to hit the brakes and stop it, and just like that, some daylight once again. You've got to do all of that work all over again. Third and fourth remain as is for the moment, but at least for this point, Dave Guild, first real mistake we've seen from him all season, and that is a really big testament to how he's been driving this season.
Good and bad that he made that mistake. It's bad naturally because now he's a second and a half off the leader when he was just a half a second off the leader. But good because of when he made that mistake. If he would have made that mistake about 4 or 5 laps ago when Keeman and Vasiliev were right on his tail, he would have fallen possibly down to 4th position off of that mistake. So both a blessing in disguise and, of course, a net negative mistake there for Dave Guild.
Not easy, though, for Javier Alvarez in comparisons to Jan Steltenpool trying to get by. Gap is 1.1 seconds, so still manageable here for Dave Guild to close. Look at Vasiliev behind, though, trying to angle to the inside at turn two, but Keeman takes that lovely outside line, and off the road is Jeff Browning there at turn two. which would have been a little bit of a shock for everyone to see smoke and yellow flags, but round he went, sliding off the road and just dipping tyres in the gravel.
And there is a plethora of lap traffic right now that these drivers are having to deal with. Dave Guild having to deal with Jan Steltenpool, who was the teammate to I.M. Keeman at the beginning of this season. So possibly a little bit of gamesmanship there, because Guild lost a ton of time behind Steltenpool. That has brought Keeman back to within a half a second behind Dave Guild.
Dave Guild was incensed over the radio.
I have to imagine.
I know, I cannot repeat what was said because there were expletives involved, and he was really upset that his race is effectively being muted at this point. From a battle to the win, for a battle for second, third and fourth at this moment, it has really given Alvarez an advantage. You can see it now. It's a whole second that he's dropped, and he's now back in the train with I.M. Keeman, probably the quickest car out there in terms of a straight line fight, which is exactly what you need in these sorts of trains. So now Leonardo Fabian will be the next to be lapped at this moment, but everyone just got to keep cool heads. Jan Steltenpool has just dived into the pits at this moment at the end of his 21st lap, so that will be his pit stop that he's starting.
And now Leonardo Fabian holding the train up a little bit there in the number 31. And unfortunately for Keeman, he's going to be stuck to his inside going through Honda. So that's going to lose Keeman a little bit of time. But Keeman, we're riding on board with him right now. This is certainly, this race was looking bad after getting passed by Vasiliev. And that somewhat has woken him up. And of course, a little bit of help from Steltenpool doesn't hurt. But he's breathing new life into this race right now.
And the gap has just exploded open to Vasiliev, who of course got caught behind there at turn 4. Leonardo Fabian, who ultimately had to go through the corner at some point and chose that one, and as such, on the exit would have to be Vasiliev going through. So now you start to wonder here how this race will continue on as things go by, and it is worth noting that Steltenpool has been in the pits for a very long time. His race all but over, it seems, as is Alexander Rogenbucks, who of course decided to say that his day is done as well. So a lot of drivers finding themselves in trouble around this place today, and a battle on for 6th place, Danny Hoekstra versus Esteban Guadarrama.
Yeah, and this is the first time since that mistake that Danny Hoekstra has found himself in a battle. Thought about a move there at MG, just could not get the nose in the way he wanted to. And now, boy, Guadarrama really forcing him to the outside. I would be very surprised if Hoekstra does not get this move done right here, right now, as we'll take a look at the dashboard there. 270K going into turn 1, and downhill is going to certainly help. 271 going into T1.
A lift as well from Esteban Guadarrama, who knows when he's beaten, and he was beaten. That was as simple as that.
Absolutely.
He was beaten in that battle. So that race continues on out there at the moment. It is still Javier Alvarez who has the race lead at this moment in time, and took the race lead very early on and has not looked back at it. But Guild and Keeman are dragging themselves back into this one. The gap's back down to 1.9 seconds. And crucially for Guild and Keeman, it's all about keeping calm now. You've had that anger moment with the traffic. You now got to put your head down. There's nothing you can do except keep calm and try and claw that gap back again.
Guilds and Keeman have just pulled back a half a second over these last couple of laps. Since they've gotten through the traffic, Guild was 2.3 seconds back. He's now 1.7 seconds back, and Keeman just put up the fastest lap of the race last time out at a 1:16.84. So those two are really flying, while Alvarez could be, one, trying to figure out fuel strategy, or two, just trying to hold on to this race car.
Well, holding on to the race car could be the big key that we see. Of course, this is going to be a tough second half of the race as they try and get themselves through. And I'm sure everyone watching will be keeping their eagle eyes open on Keeman's charge, and Dave Gill trying to keep himself a run of podiums. And on top of that, Javier Alvarez trying to keep himself back in the championship picture. But it's by no ways over just yet. Keeman shadowing Guild through the front stretch as they head themselves towards turn 1 on their 26th lap of this race. And they're not quite going to get there at the moment. as they now flick through that next left of turn number 2, the southern loop. So still more work to be done, but we are about halfway through this one. Another 32 minutes left on the clock to figure out how this one is going to all be sorted.
Yeah, and this could be very, very big for Dave Gild, not just because he's catching up, and certainly not because Keeman is sticking right with him. Look who's in front of Javier Alvarez right now. That is Mark Bruning. Now, that might not mean a lot to some people, but when you see what team he's a part of, Tulip Racing USA, and with Dave Gild being a part of the parent team, Tulip Racing, he could do what Stelton Pool just did for I.M. Keeman. Maybe Bruning can hold up Alvarez, or at least force Alvarez to pass him in an awkward spot to really bring that lead down, as Gild has gained another about 0.3 of a second on Alvarez.
Yeah, and crucially, has lost those 0.3, so he can't match the same pace that Dave Gild is able to get out of this stint. And remember, this track is getting hotter and hotter as this race goes. We were talking about how it was 24 degrees in qualifying. Well, it was 27 earlier on. It's now up to 28 degrees here at this moment in time. This track, it's only going to get hotter. And of course, you have to remember here, Frank, this is Australia. It gets incredibly hot as you go through. And Bruning getting on the radio saying, I do want to let you through. I will let you through.
Yeah, but he's bringing him up at a very, very difficult part of the racetrack now, as he does move very well and clearly out of the way. Gild, by the way, was very, very rapid that last lap, put down a 16.73 fastest lap of the race. Meanwhile, Alvarez, you saw in the graphic, only able to do a 17.3. So Gild flying right now in that number 98.
It's go left, says Marcellus Bruning. He's going to allow I.M. Keeman the natural racing line, and thank you very much. He got through absolutely all of them. But look at what all that one car of traffic has done. It has brought the top 3 even closer together, and they're going to be starting to get worried here with pit stop cycle. Alvarez dives in with Gild following and Keeman. Top 3 all in at the same time. Vasiliev as well, and Boozy. You have to remember, this is one of the highest fuel usage circuits they'll go to all season.
Yep, absolutely, and they are just at the halfway point. Pavel Vasiliev in as well, Christoph Boozy in. So the entirety of the top 5 in, and look at this chorus line of cars coming into their pit boxes. Alvarez and Gild able to stop first. As out they go, which pit exit are they going to take is going to be the interesting question. Now they decide to take the long one. Vasiliev takes the short one. Same with I.M. Keeman. So 2 different runs on pit exit.
They certainly did, but crucially, Vasiliev got the jump on Keeman. A great stop, saving all the fuel, puts them in 3rd. But now there's traffic to deal with. They've got to get by De La Fuente here, who, of course, is trying to get his lap back in this race. And now you start to wonder here, Keeman's got a really good charge. If he wants to go and attack, it's covered on the middle of the line road from Vasiliev. And Vasiliev, he knows what he's done. He's covered that off nicely, but he's got to get through the traffic soon. They have let 1st and 2nd run away. Gild and Alvarez here are 1 and 2.
We'll take a look at the pit lane.
Around.
Who was that? I'm sorry?
Christoph Boozy's got around at the exit of 4.
Yep, there he is right there. And again, coming on the exit of turn 4, that would mean too much power too soon there, and it was a big slide for Boozy, as we'll take a look at it on replay. Oh no, he caught that that curbing, and it kind of ripped him around. Fortunate to keep it out of that tire wall on the inside.
And that's the thing with AstroTurf there, is you got curb and AstroTurf on the outside. You just grab a bit, it turns to grass there halfway through, and then you've just got that sudden loss of grip on one side of the tyres. It's nigh on impossible to go and catch that and stop that out there in this one. But the race still very much on as things look. Drivers all fighting out, hoping that they've got places. Dave Gild and Javier Alvarez, they've got exactly what they both wanted here. It's 1v1 between them for a race win.
Yep, absolutely, and we're showing right now on the timing tower, we're showing the pit lane time. That's the total time from cone to cone on the pit lane, and you wonder why Pavel Vasiliev got out in front of I.M. Keeman. Vasiliev a full 1.6 seconds quicker in the pit lane than I am Keeman. That's all he needed to make up the difference. And Keeman's actually just crashed.
Oh, no. This has been exactly what his season's been for I Am Keeman. He has just been struggling and struggling and struggling. I wouldn't have said crash.
All right, yeah, no,
a little bit off there. He gets it horribly wrong through turn 4, goes out through the grass, and has the very, very ignominious place to try and get it back going again because he was tiptoeing to make sure the car didn't spin.
He's had an off even before that. Vasiliev came out of MG a little bit awkward. We'll show this again on the replay here. We'll go overhead, or at least, my goodness, where in the world are we right now?
11.
Well, no, it's on the replay at least. Yeah, our replay
completely turn 11.
Yeah, our replay completely broke there. But right now you saw. Okay, we'll try this fourth time lucky, I think is the term. You can see how awkward Vasiliev comes out of MG, and then trying to get around. Keeman tries a little bit too hard, gets off the track, goes into the tire wall, and then compounds that by going off in Honda. So it took a second, but we finally got to where we needed to be.
It was a long walk along a windy beach to a cafe that was closed, but we got there in the end, and that was the important thing that mattered. Anyway, all of this has brought Boozy back to Keeman.
I put it up into the blimp for the replay, and then right where we were supposed to be, there was just a big empty void, so I didn't know if there was something wrong with the replay or not. But we got there eventually, just a change of the camera.
Absolutely. So battles are on now. First and second, and fourth and fifth in this race. That is now where we find things. A lot of drivers now with a lot of thought and focus being put into it. Alvarez and Guild, of course, the top two at this stage, and they are trying to break away and keep themselves away from Pavel Vasiliev, who will just quietly run his race and will be quite happy, I would say, at this moment in time to take third place. That will keep him in the championship lead, heading to the mystery 6th round of the championship because we're waiting for schedule.
Yep, absolutely. And there is Vasiliev going through Honda right now, 4 seconds off the pace, 4 seconds off the race lead, I should say. As solid third place right now. He also with the mistake of Christoph Boozy coming out of pit road as well. That has pretty much solidified his podium position, as Keeman and Boozy now are only a couple of seconds between each other. About 3 seconds off of Keeman is Boozy, so there's a little bit to play for there. We just saw, I believe that was Javier De La Fuente coming out of pit road, and now Mark Brunning coming out of pit road as well in the 61.
Yeah, and we'll go a lap down here, will Marcellus Brunning, and we'll be looking for this one. Has about half a lap here to Leonardo Fabian, so he's not in any worries of that. But
Guild for the lead.
So close now here to Javier Alvarez, who's trying to cover the inside line. He'll wash out through the mid part of the corner. He's got to gather it up on the exit. Guild's chance has arrived, and which way is he going to go? Which way is he going to be forced? He's forced to the inside through Stoner because that was hard to the right, taking the most outside of outside lines. Inside is there. Guild taking the outside line, takes the race lead away.
For the first time since that exact turn on the very first lap of this race, Javier Alvarez not in the lead, and Dave Guild, we talked about it before, second, third. He's at the top of the podium right now.
Still searching for that first win of the season. So is Javier Alvarez, of course. Ilbrink's got 2. Vasiliev's got 1, as well as Manuel Domingo, who's racing an ISOWC at this moment in time. So at least you could say, for this moment, the race is not over and done with just yet. Javier Alvarez wants to keep himself open and honest in this one, but Dave Guild, we have seen consistently, has been putting in the fastest laps of this race here on the 33rd lap. We go to right now, we are 42 minutes into an hour and 5, which means we've only got 23 to go.
0.8 of a second to gap, but that's also because Alvarez was passing Guild there, or was being passed by Guild, I should say. But Guild has pulled out a big advantage already, half a second. It got as far out as about 7/10 of a second before they got down the front straightaway. So Guild's in a spot where he is the quicker car, has been the quicker car. He's just got to deal with what Alvarez has been dealing with now, trying to get the car behind him out of his draft.
And that is so difficult. Alvarez, I think, has got a car which doesn't like being behind, and you can see it here with that gap really opening up now to about 6-7 tenths of a second and continuing to grow here for Javier Alvarez. He's got to gather it back up again and showcase what he's got. Dave Guild has not had too much to worry about in this race. Yes, he's been angry, of course, with the traffic around this, but the traffic has pretty much opened itself out. We haven't seen too much of that since. So you now start to wonder here, where are the battles? We've also got one for the final spots in the top 10. Leonardo Fabian versus Javier De La Fuente.
It's amazing how quickly little things like that become completely inconsequential, and then all of that anger just completely fades away, isn't it?
It's just fantastic. It's almost like you're winning the race.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if he is at this point, but he's certainly close.
Certainly is. Lap 34 of his event right now, but Fabian versus De La Fuente, that's going to be the one that we focus on for a little bit here, Frank. These two fighting out in the mid-pack of the championship, and there are some really good points to be had here for these two.
Yeah, both with Rebellion racing red as well, so unless they take each other out here, this is going to be a very, very good day for the pair of them. I mean, finishing in the top 10 and just outside of the top 10, obviously not not overwhelming, but still a solid day. Esteban Guadarrama also having a very good day in his Rebellion racing car, running up in the 7th position right now, about 5 seconds off of Danny Hoekstra in the 91.
Well, that's the key. It's a little bit more than 5 seconds to Danny Hoekstra, I would have put at this point. It's more at 13, but the key for Guadarrama is that Danny Hoekstra might have to come in again for a second stop, and then it's a case for him of how far can he go and how much of a gap would he have with that extra stop in play.
I misread the timing. It's 5 seconds back to Ponick behind him, and Hoekstra, you're right, 14 seconds up the road there in the 91. But you're right, that's with Hoekstra coming in. Well, Hoekstra came in with everybody else on lap 27. That's his second stop, so he is still on cycle there. So he came in to repair the wing and then came in again to take his fuel stop with everybody else. So he is still on cycle.
Yep, he should still be safe, and that is going to be crucial between now and the end. Vasiliev is not giving this one up, though, in 3rd position. You look at that gap to Javier Alvarez. It's 2.6 seconds when they crossed the line as they went on through. So I'd say this race is still very much alive. Alvarez is keeping Guild honest at about 6 to 7 tenths of a second, and Vasiliev wants to keep these two pushing each other because he knows if anything happens between those two, he's just on cleanup duty.
And it was the lap 32, where Alvarez got passed for the lead that Vasiliev was able to gain 1.3 seconds essentially back. Gained another 10th and a half off as Steltenpool, I believe, is what you might have been oohing at.
No, I was oohing at contact between Fabian and De La Fuente into 4. Fabian holds.
Yep, and we'll take a look at it again here. We'll see now what you saw. This going into Honda. And, yep, you're right. Big contact there between those two. And Fabian's the one that comes out the negative.
He does, and he's in fact given the position away to Javier De La Fuente there. So clear that there is not something too right with Leonardo Fabian's car at this stage, or he's just given that place. It doesn't look like there's too much damage on the car, so they both stay out. So Leonardo Fabian giving the place away then at earliest available opportunities. Gap still there or thereabouts as well between Boozy and Keenan. We'll keep an eye on that as things continue on, but still another point of the race where those two aren't guaranteed to finish in those places here.
No, absolutely not. There's about 2 seconds between Keeman and Boozy, about 2.5, I should say, between those two. And Keeman is putting in solid lap times, but the same with Christoph Boozy, putting in lap times that are very, very representative as well. So those two still, I mean, one mistake and Keeman is right in the clutches of Boozy, as I think Boozy had a lockup there going through MG.
Yep, definitely did. So You'd say that these two are really trying to figure out how their race is going to go between now and the end. It's still a long way to go. And the big thing is that these drivers normally race on laps so they can physically see how long it's going to go. You've got to do a little bit more mental math when you've got decisions on time. And you can see they're on lap 37 right now, and they are over 3/4 of the way through this race. Every lap that ticks by is going to feel like an extra bit of torture, especially with the added 5 minutes that you traditionally get from those 48 laps that we normally have in this sort of race.
Yeah, so today's race was scheduled to be 48 laps. We'd be working with 12 laps to go right now, which would be right around the 15-minute mark. So, yeah, you're right. It is about another 5 minutes. So these guys will be going 50, maybe 51 laps here today. So not too over-strenuous on these drivers, but still not the scheduled distance. Yep, Danny Hoekstra, you're right, off again. Turn 2.
That's a huge off. That is an absolutely massive off there at turn 1. And he's managed to go all the way through 2. The back completely stepping out on him as he spins it around.
Oh, wow.
And then as he tries to go back through, he's gone all the way down at turn 2 and tried to rejoin the track again. He's completely missed the southern loop.
Yeah, he has. And it's entertaining when you can just cut parts of the racetrack out. And that is one of the things, though, with this circuit. The other one I could think, wow, that's a hard little fall off of that plateau that he just took. But was it Summit Point is another one of those racetracks where there's not really walls that are preventing you from jumping onto another portion of racetrack. But still, I would have to say the penalty of having to go through the grass that long would be penalty enough, and he's going to be coming into pit road, I would have to assume, to fix the floor that he just broke in half.
I have to tell you what, if he was in full motion rig, he'd be fixing more than the floor. Mark my words about it. I'll tell you what is very interesting, though, as Hoekstra is into the pits once again. Fastest driver on track that last time by was Jeff Browning on a 1:16.9.
Atta boy. Good job for Jeff Browning as I go to Mark Brunning there. Close enough. Same team, but there he is. There's the fastest man on track. And he is coming up. I believe that's one of the atomic cars that he's coming up on right now.
Yep, that's Christoph Boozy just in front. So Boozy's on his chase right now. He's got the gap down to 2.2 seconds. But crucially enough, it's a case of having Jeff Browning behind there. 17.5 that last time by. Jeff very comfortable then sitting behind Christoph, who's running his race right now. Keeman slowly being reeled back in at this moment in time, and that is a big factor in how this race is going to end up here in the battle for 4th and 5th.
Was it 2.5 seconds the last time we saw this battle, and now it's gone down to 1.9 seconds, as we'll throw another graphic up at you just to show how much that this gap has closed over these last couple laps. And I would have to assume it's little mistakes from Keeman, just like maybe doing what he just did there, maybe getting a little too far off, missing apexes, because that's quite a gap to lose in just 2 or 3 laps time just on merit alone.
It is a big gap to lose, so hopefully we're not going to see Ian Keeman struggle with that. We've been looking over his times as well, and we've been seeing he's just done his last 2 laps, a 17.8 and a 17.6. That's more indication of he's struggling to hit his markers in comparison to all of those around me, or around them, sorry, at this stage. So that's going on. Not the best turn 2 from Dave Guild at the front. Alvarez has got a stunning run here in towards turn 4 at Honda. Here comes the lunge down the inside. Alvarez for Positive Sim Racing needs to put the power down quick if he's to get this done tyre to tyre as they make the kink run to Siberia, and it's the long outside line that gives Alvarez the lead again.
And it's that long outside line that's able to pin it a little bit sooner, because you're able to straighten the wheel out a little bit sooner on that long outside line as compared to the inside. You'd think the inside line shorter way around, but if you have the momentum, and boy, Guild, we're riding on board with him, took a little tiny peek into MG, nothing really threatening there. But now Alvarez, we could be seeing that Alvarez was just trying to save the car a little bit, because he's jumped out to the same advantage that Guild had previously gotten out to when he took the lead.
Oh, and it's really showing here. These drivers are struggling a little bit in this race. It's one where they've got to be so alert and so head on a swivel around this place. This is such an important battle, and as they go through one once again and in towards two, this was where the mistake was made by Guild, who just pushed a little bit too hard in through the southern loop, had to check it up, and the time fell away. So now, question becomes, how does it go from here?
He just pushed out wide again. Alvarez was able to keep that one a lot more tidy and tucked in coming out of turn two. Now he's gotten away again, but Guild is right back on him, just 2/10 the gap between the two. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic race for the last, 12 minutes we're able to see it.
Exactly. This is going to be an important battle. 12 minutes is not long at all in this race. It will feel like forever as they continue to battle through, but you can see how the dirty air effect is really coming into play for these drivers right now. And Vasiliev, he's got eyes on stalks. He's seeing these two as close as they are, and he's going, oh, come on, please let me have Christmas come along in June.
Yep, absolutely. And he's only 2.4 seconds back now, so he's been falling back while those two were running line astern. And now that they're starting to battle, he's starting to close back up as here comes Guild going into turn one. He's got that preferred line on the inside. He's got to make the move stick before going into two, otherwise he's going to lose it, and that's exactly what happens. He loses it going through two.
That is just how difficult it is to make a move. Use the outside line through one. You have the inside through the long turn two, and it's covered. Alvarez, middle of the road again, as he makes that run to 3 and 4 here at Honda for the prime place to get it done. And not going to be able to get it done is Dave Guild. But every time Dave Guild goes side by side, that driver in the number 11, the championship leader, will close in. Remember, it's his debut season, Pavel Vasiliev, and he is really showing that he is doing more than just winning races. He's staying consistent and Alain Prosting his way to a championship lead.
Yeah, and that was where and how Guild was able to make that pass. Just unfortunately, he didn't have the run that he did last time, and he took a big dive going into MG as one of the Rebellion cars went off in front of him.
It was Esteban Guadarrama who went off the road spinning right in front of the leaders. So no worries at all. He was in the grass and didn't affect that one overall. But that is a shame for him to fall a lap down that way. He's been having a really good run. He didn't lose a position though. Again, Dave Guild looking to attack. Alvarez covering the inside line here at turn two and almost shepherding to the outside line where all the marbles start to gather up, and Alvarez makes a half mistake. He loses the back end, has to hit the brakes, and Dave Guild gets a freebie. Cookies, race lead.
Yep, and that's exactly what he was waiting for, was just the tiniest mistake. Alvarez is going to come right back on him on the inside, going through Honda, trying to keep that car wound up as Guild, and he will cover off the rebound fight from Alvarez. What a battle as we come down to the final 10 minutes.
My word, these two are trading punches with every single lap that goes by. And let's not forget that Christoph Buzi's doing work against I Am Keeman as well. That's still going on. And Guild takes that big narrow line into MG in comparison to Javier Alvarez. They're pushing so hard around this place, putting so much in these tyres. And with how much parabolic cornering there is, it's the rears that are going to be hurting more than the fronts.
Yep, absolutely. And you're seeing that with Alvarez, the mistake he made coming out of turn two. And all this time, Vasiliev, last we left him, he was 2.7 seconds back. He's just closed it now within 2 seconds. He was the fastest of the top three that last time around. Naturally, the two in front of him were battling, so he would be. But still, Vasiliev really closing in that number 11 now.
17-1 from Pavel Vasiliev. He's trying to close this down because he knows Dave Guild in the race lead. It's the last place he wants him. He wants to try and mitigate that by finishing second if he can. So now you start to wonder here, has Dave Guild got enough? And the worst part about this all is there are 3 cars in the future. Stelton Pool, who we saw the history with earlier on. We saw Leonardo Fabian, and we've got Mark Ponick there in 6th place. So these drivers all have to work their way around, and traffic could be the deciding factor in this race.
Several things could happen here as they come up on Stelton Pool. Stelton Pool could be a lot. Yep, Fabian is off. There you saw him at MG. Again, so easy to do there. But going back to Steltenpool, a couple of things could happen. One, he could take offense to what happened before and hold up Guild even worse this time. Two, he could let him go. One, to either as an apology for Guild, or two, because Keeman is not in this battle anymore. So there's a couple of ways this could play out here for multiple reasons.
Statement lap by Dave Guild, a 16.8 that last time around. His fastest lap is a 16.7 on board. Alvarez could only manage a 17.2 and a 17.4 for Vasiliev. So the gaps extend out once again. Dave Guild has got to continue on this rich vein of attacking because he knows the time is now. We're on lap 45 of this race, and if you're going to get things going, well, you're only down now inside the final 10 minutes. We've got 7 minutes to go.
And everybody locked up there going through Honda. Steltenpool locked up Guild. Alvarez also had a little bit of a lockup going into Honda. So these tires are really at the end of their life. We're coming down 7 minutes to go here in this race. These cars are crying for some relief, and Guild has pulled that gap out to 1.2 seconds. So Alvarez really starting to fade away. Guild might just have that chance on Alvarez, at least, that he's been working so hard to get.
And that chance is what we focus on. Alvarez needs to stay within a second. Gap is 1.2. It's not working for Javier Alvarez. He's reliant on the traffic now. And now you can say Vasiliev isn't much better. Close 3/10. The gap 1.8, but 1.8 isn't going to get the job done at this moment in time. He's got to do everything in his powers to go through. Guadarrama, by the way, is diving into the pits late. He just dropped the position to Marcellus Bruning. He might lose one now to Herkstra and De La Fuente if he's not careful. So that's another little thing to keep in the back of the mind how this one's going forward. But at least for the time being, Guild in control, Alvarez in second, Vasiliev in third, and unless something drastic happens to Dave Guild, he is running for the border.
Yeah, this is why I'm not necessarily the greatest when it comes to lap traffic, because if I were Guild right now, I would be on the radio to Steltenpool saying, if you know what's good for you, move as far out of the way as humanly possible, because I am coming. He is also pulling away. Guild put down a 17.1 last time, Vasiliev a 3, Alvarez a 6. Alvarez also has been falling rapidly off. Vasiliev has closed that up to within a second and a half.
A second and a half. It was a great lap from Dave Guild, except for turn 11.
Yep.
He was on for a stormer. He was gone, were it not for that one small mistake he had going through 11, putting the power down. He gathered it up magnificently, but what's crucial here is that Alvarez cannot capitalize. I think he's burned so much tire trying to fight with Dave Guild.
Yep, absolutely. And now Guild, boy, it's very tense for Guild right now because he knows I've got Alvarez now. You could tell that he's slowing Guild up. Him being Steltenpool is slowing Guild up because Alvarez is slowly working his way back. Guild, I think, is a little bit tentative to pass Steltenpool right now.
Give credit to Steltenpool. He's doing a 17.9. That's a look to the inside. You're not going to get lapped that way. And Jan Steltenpool, if he feels like he is quick enough to keep Dave Guild behind, we're running iRacing rules here. There is no obligation. It is the obligation of the passing car to get by cleanly, more rather than is it going to be the driver who is in front. Yes, it's not cool for lap traffic to be in the way, but it is showing at this stage which way you're going to go. He's trying to say, come on, let me go on the inside. 1.2 seconds. I can't afford to sit back and wait there. I think he's going to have to pull an overtake here.
But to be fair to Steltenpool, he has done his personal best lap each of the last 2 laps. So Steltenpool is not backing him off, as now Steltenpool will let him go coming out of turn 2 and into turn 3. So Steltenpool has been pushing it, set a 17.9, which was his fastest lap overall, and now just put down a 17.83. So he has been pushing. He has not been slacking off trying to back Guild up.
No, absolutely not. He wasn't looking to try and do that at any point in time. And now you're starting to see here nerves in play. Leonardo Fabian having to come in for a stop. But Guild in control. Alvarez there in second. There is only one car left in the laps anywhere close, and that is Mark Ponick. And now you start to think, you can start to taste it, but you start looking behind here for Javier Alvarez. Suddenly, Pavel Vasiliev looks a little bit closer than he has been.
Yep, Vasiliev got it down within a second there that last lap. Vasiliev was the slowest of the three in the top three. We'll see where he is now. Guild puts down a 17.3, Alvarez a 17.6, Vasiliev a 17 flat. So Vasiliev is on it right now. Only 2.5 minutes to go. If you got it, you have to use it now.
2 laps then. 2.5 minutes is 2 laps around this place. So Javier Alvarez knows he can't afford to let the wheels fall off the wagon. He's got to hold on here for second, with Vasiliev, the championship leader, just behind, pushing him every stage of the way. These three are the ones who have just kept themselves as the coolest cowboys in the room, in a room which has been full of pistol shooters. But now you start to wonder here around this track, around Phillip Island, a place which is revered by so many. Who is going to keep their cool for the final lap in a bit?
It's going to be very, very close. And Vasiliev has been by far and away the quickest driver of the group. So Vasiliev, if Vasiliev's going to get him, it's going to be on the last lap.
It absolutely will. Alvarez is falling backwards. 1 lap to go. Surely now for Dave Guild. We'll look at the clock as we cross the line. 1:03.43. That gives us 16 seconds, and it's 1:17 laps. That's not a guarantee that this race is finished. It depends on Barney the Flagman, as colloquially named here by, of course, iRacing. They've named him Barney up there on the flag stand. It's 6/10 between Alvarez and Vasiliev at this moment in time. And Javier Alvarez is looking back, and still looking back at this moment, seeing there Vasiliev get right up behind in the atomic car and trying to get close enough to make an overtake. He's not there just yet as they go through Siberia, but if he's going to make it happen, it's got to be at turn 10 at MG. They'll rush through the hayshed for what could be the final time and take that run up Lukey Heights, through the left, through the right. Someone's in the wall. Down there, it's going to be Leonardo Fabian in trouble there. But that won't matter for the moment as they go through the final section. There was no look at MG yet from Vasiliev. He's going to need a run to the line. How close is this going to be on time? Dave Guild will make his way through the final corner. Will the checkered flag be unfurled? No,
yes,
it will not.
Yes, it is.
No,
it's over.
Not, I don't think. Yes, it will. It will. Dave Guild has done it. He has picked up the win. And how close was it on the line? It was 0.2 of a second. I thought we were going to see it over the line. Ultimately, we did not. But just like that, it is a very close race as they cross. Dave Guild has got his first win.
You saw in that final sector, Guild was really starting to back off, and that's because he was trying to time it to where he would get over the line and not lose the lap. Absolutely fantastic stuff from Dave Guild, picking up his first win in the eFormula Series.
And what a huge win that comes to as well, with such a wonderful drive, and with all of the drivers who could have challenged here today, who could have put themselves up at the very top. It's once again a case here, Frank, of drivers who make the least amount of mistakes.
Yep, absolutely. And Guild did it absolutely perfectly. Just an absolutely wonderful race from him. And it was, you're right, it was that twitch coming out of turn 2 from Alvarez that sealed the deal.
Deal sealed. We just wait for Mark Ponick then to make his way to the line in 6th place, the last finisher on the leading lap. It's been a very incredible race in a number of factors here in eFormula, and it's done it all over again. Let's get official classified results then up on screen. It's 1 hour, 5 minutes, 1 second. That's how long it took Dave Guild to find the win, and did so in a 51-lap thriller by 0.9 of a second. Beats Javier Alvarez, who just got himself past Pavel Vasiliev at the end, kept himself afloat there with a wonderful top 3 being split by not much. I.M. Keeman gets 4th. A mistake from him today means that drops him back a little bit, but he gains big ground in the Privateers Championship, with Christoph Boozy there for Atomic getting 5th place, which is a pretty strong result. Mark Ponick found himself on an island on his own in P6. You can see he's about 50 seconds back there. Christoph Boozy finishing in 6th and the last finisher on the leading lap, with Marcellus Brunning there in 7th and Danny Herkstra a few trips through the grass and the pits there in 8th place. It's Esteban Guadarrama who gets 9th, with Javier De La Fuente rounding out the top 10. 2 laps down for Jeff Browning, who at one point was the fastest driver in the field. Leonardo Fabian, 3 laps down, ends it in the tyres at Lukey Heights, with Jan Stelzner 3 laps down as well. The retirements, though, from this race: Alexander Rogenbach, of course, the big one, Paul Ilbrink, and then finally Nathan Brumby after his explosive end to the racing that he had here today as well. But Frank, we've been talking about how this championship just continues to change up and bring people into play. I believe you found the race winner, Dave Guild, but what a race.
It absolutely was an incredible race, and we will bring in the race winner here tonight. Dave Guild, 3rd place at VIR, 2nd at Interlagos, 3rd at Monza, and now your 4th consecutive podium, and this time, for the first time, you're on the top step.
Yeah, mate, I'm well chuffed. I couldn't believe it. Starting in 5th, I didn't think I had the pace on the guys, but coming into the race, well, it was just a different story. No, I'll tell you, I'm well chuffed.
It was an absolutely incredibly run race from you. You were up at the front of that field when it was a 6-car group, when it was a 5-car group, a 4-car group, then eventually a 3-car group. It looked as though that pit stop is really what helped you. Why? A couple of questions. That on that pit stop, did you just think you got in and out a little bit better than Alvarez? And why didn't you take the short exit, instead electing to go with him on the long exit?
I don't know why I didn't take the short one, but we've been practicing taking the long one just in case people was coming down the straight, so we're not cutting straight in front if there's going 2 or 3 abreast or something. So we've been practicing the long one the whole time, so I just naturally went with that one. But yeah, the pit stop, well, yeah, it was fast. But yeah, it really did pull us back together. But the back markers, I mean, they was holding Javier up, and then he got round them, and they held, well, he more or less packed his car on the apex of that tight corner, and he was just holding us up for Keenan. But lucky enough, after the pit stops, we got our gap back, what we had achieved, and we just battled between ourselves.
Yeah, you just brought up Steltenpool holding you up to try to back you up into Keenan. Was there any did you feel tentative at all on those last couple laps, thinking that, okay, he might have taken exception to what I had said before, and now he's not going to let me through as easily, so I have to be careful? Or were you just trying to pace yourself to where you finished the way you did?
What do you mean? I didn't say nothing. But yeah, no, I do apologise for what I said, but at the moment, we're pushing for it, and the last thing you need is a back markers getting in the way. It's hard enough driving as it is without all that. But yeah, I was getting a bit scared, to be honest. I didn't know what to do. I thought he's just going to take me out here in a minute. But yeah, no, it ended all right. It was all right. I do apologise, Jan.
It's amazing how something like this can just completely wash those feelings away. Not sure where we're going yet. Next in 2 weeks' time. Any thoughts on where you guys might be leaning towards going, and really just thoughts on the championship now, because you have really closed that lead up to Vasiliev?
I'm not too sure at all where we're going. It's not something I've spoke to Danny about, to be honest. But he better start pulling his finger out and getting more of the tracks up on the schedule. I need to know where we're going, because the start of this race ended up being a bit different to what it should have been, because something happened with the iRacing. So Mark had to make a different session, and we was running a lot different temperatures than what we've been practicing all week. So yeah, that was very interesting as well.
Anywhere you would like to go next week, or at least in the second half of this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going to Gilles Villeneuve, but Montreal. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if that's on the roster or not.
Anyone you want to thank before celebrating your first win?
Yeah, as usual, I thank the team, Mac, Jeff, Danny, and old Bert there for being the spotter, and my old man sitting there going, "Oh, just slow down. You'll be all right. Calm down." But but yeah, another shout out to Tom Wedgwood, I think it is. He actually shared this setup with me today. I didn't really have a competitive setup in official racing, so thanks for that, Tom. And yeah, no, thank you guys for, as usual, for putting on a good show.
Well, there you go. And with a little assistance, Dave Guild gets his first win with the eFormula Series. Bud, congratulations, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time wherever we are.
Yeah, man. Cheers. Thank you very much.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, that would be one big battle that we've had underway. We're going to drag in the driver who finished in second. I don't have the permissions for that, but we are going to bring Javier Alvarez into the conversation. Javier, that was a race where you had to really fight for it early on. You got the lead at turn number 4, and then ultimately it was just the case, and we were expecting it. It was going to be always really tough to break away.
Yeah, thank you guys. A very, very interesting race. The key for me was the temperature, was racing and racing and racing. During the week, I was planning and testing in 20 degrees, and I think we finished the race with more than 32 degrees, almost 33. So at the start and during the qualifying, I felt good, but after the mid-race, I was really struggling.
Well, the struggles were there and evident to see, but it was an absolutely titanic battle between you and Dave towards the end. It seemed like every other lap that you were trying to gear up and line up those moves. Do you feel like it was just a case of whoever could land that final punch and do so with the least time remaining?
I don't know. I was trying not to fight until the last 5 laps because Pavel was coming from behind. After the pit stop, we opened a gap, and I was not happy when Dave tried to overtake me, and when I lost 1 second in that lap, then I decided to stay behind and to attack at the end. I reserved several DRS, but then the struggling with the tires complicated everything. And Dave did a mistake, and then I had to overtake him because we could not wait more. But obviously, he had more pace at the end of the race. Because I think it is because the temperature. I hope so, but his drive was perfect.
Well, it's been a very good renaissance from you over the last couple of rounds of the championship. You now find yourself well within the championship fight, closing the gap down ever so slightly to Vasiliev behind overall. Ilbrink as well running into troubles today with a non-finish. Do you feel now that you're setting yourself up very strongly for the second half of the season if you can continue to get results like this?
Okay, this elder man, 55 years old, and will try to do his best in the second half. I am also negotiating the vacations with my family, but I hope not to miss more than 1 or 2 races and to fight and to do the best I can do.
Absolutely. And of course, you're a busy man, Javier. Of course, you also run the Positive Sim Racing team. So shout out sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank here after what was P2 and a very strong fight.
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy with this second position in the season. Thank you to my teammates, all the team Positives in Racing, and the sponsors, of course, and you guys for the broadcast, which is very fine. I always review the broadcast every week. Thank you.
No worries at all. Javier Alvarez then picking up second position overall. And Frank, I believe you've found our championship leader, but I'm not sure how the points will look after we come away from here.
It's certainly
I did that for channel.
It's certainly going to be incredibly close. I'm sorry to cut you off from that conversation you were having, Pavel. A very, very good run from you. If you would have had one more lap, you would have been able to at least battle for that second position on the podium. How close did it get those last couple of laps?
Oh man, it was close. I saw Dave and Javi fighting, and I knew that this is the time where I need to really push. And luckily, I tried pushing earlier in the race, but somehow I couldn't. But then towards the end of the race, I managed to get my pace up. So yeah, I could really smell Javier's, exhaust towards the end, but yeah, not enough laps.
And just think, if there hadn't have been the mistake, you wouldn't have been that close, running 2 or 3 laps overtime here today from what we were expected to. It's been a very, very up and down season for you. This has been a very good rebound off of Monza from 2 weeks ago. We have one, we're not quite sure where we're going next in the championship, but this has certainly had to have perked your ears up for the second half of this season, with Guild being on the form that he is.
Yeah, Dave is really fast and doing a great job. And there is about 5 or 6 drivers that I consider are very, very, very fast and sort of on the pace. So yeah, it's gonna be tough. My game plan is just to be consistent. I always aim to finish in the top 5. If I can do better, great. If not, then I'll just practice for the next race and try to do better next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And with how close this championship is looking here, in between so many different competitors, this is going to be one we're really going to have to focus and bear down. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go and celebrate another podium finish here?
Absolutely. So as always, thank you guys for the broadcast, and I want to thank the league organizers and all the participants, because it really is a pleasure. I always look forward to racing in this league every 2 weeks. And of course, my teammates Max and Christoph. Christoph brought some good points for the team today, and Max was spotting for both of us, helping out. So yeah, that's about it.
All right, there's your third place finisher here today, Pavel Vasilyev. Congratulations, bud.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, with that then bringing itself all towards a close, we don't quite know exactly where we are heading 2 weeks from now, but what we can tell you is that we will be bringing that action for you with the second half of the season. Of course, we are switching from a week 12 to a week 13 to another week 1 in the iRacing season, so the calendar, which does coincide with the championship that runs for the iRacing Formula Renault 3.5, that is where you get all of those differences in. But Frank, final thoughts after what was an important end to the first half of the season and a championship that literally could not be any closer.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of great racing from all the drivers that are in the championship fight. And I think what's made it even closer is the fact that Paul Ilbrink has had up and down races pretty much this entire first half of the season. We saw him pretty down at both Road America and at VIR. Interlagos and Monza obviously coming up with the wins, and then here just one mistake completely put him out. Put him behind the 8 ball, and then a second one just took him out of the race entirely. So that's also made this championship fight really, really interesting coming down to the second half of the season.
You can only catch it with the eFormula series here with us, of course, at the Esports Broadcasting Network. If you haven't had the chance already, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe for more amazing content brought to you here. But a massive, massive shout out has to go to everyone who's been working hard behind the scenes to make this event a reality. From Frank Marchese pulling double duty cameras and commentary, myself, Jake Sperry, it is one which Dave Guild can take to the bank and smile about. A long hour and 5 minutes for a victory that gave everything and a little bit more. But on top of that, we are talking about a championship which has just got itself very, very close, and 5 more rounds in a championship to try and work out where everyone sorts themselves out. We'll see you 2 weeks from now, but in the meanwhile, make sure you enjoy all that ESPN has to offer. Goodbye.